Hello everyone, it's Michael.azar here. Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about why sometimes some people have struggles with sight reading and how to get better at sight reading. So, sight reading is the concept of looking at a piece of music and singing it for the first time without ever singing it or hearing it before. And it's a very important skill to have. In a lot of the circles I'm in Byzantine chant or in Western music or things of that manner, sight reading is a very important skill because you're given a lot of times a very high volume of music to learn in a very, very short amount of time or without any time or previous notice. So what you'll find often is that, a lot of the top level musicians have very good sight reading skills. And when you're starting off, either in intermediate, early advanced, or light beginner, or things like that, a lot of what you can do with your music and singing, or even playing for an instrument for that matter, is restricted on how well you can sight read. And now there's a couple reasons why this is the case. The first thing, and this is more for those singers out there, is that you don't really have a good connection or have good connections with solfege and their pitches, as well as the relation between different pitches using solfege. If you're in Byzantine chant, this would be the equivalent of saying you don't have the best connections or associations with different parts of the parley scale, or using parley. So solfege or parley is using syllables to denote pitch, and they're very important for understanding relationships in music. For example, if I see a G to a C in the key of C major, and I don't have a good pitch association, I will not notice that is so do, and notice it's just it's 5 going to 1, which is it's more of a music theory thing. But even then, so do, hearing that relationship in every key or knowing how that sounds in every key is very helpful for reading music. Byzantine chant is the same idea. If I see a up 4 and I'm on ni pavogadi, ni di, I'm like, that's just the 5th. Dun dun. And making those connections with parley is crucial for truly understanding how to sight read well. Because sight reading is just seeing what you're having on your paper and making those associations so you can sing them or play them if you're playing an instrument. So the important thing is to develop a good sense of intervals and a good sense of solfege, or again like a Byzantine parley. So here's my recommendation. There's a lot of good softwares out there for learning intervals, but a very good interval training software is musictheory.net. They have a very, it's not the most robust in the sense of it's like amazing, but it works pretty well. It plays you 2 pitches and either together in sequence, either ascending or descending, and it allows you to figure out which interval it is. Is it a major second, minor second, things like that. If you're in the Byzantine community, you can kind of use that as well to figure out, how do certain intervals in the diatonic scale sound. So I'll link musictheory.net in the description. It's a very useful resource for that. The other thing that is kind of impeding on your sight reading is not sight reading enough or not using enough volume of things to sight read. So, I think of it as learning a language. If you're trying to learn Arabic is a notoriously hard language. If you're trying to learn Arabic and you're trying to learn how to read it, and you're not reading it on a daily or multi times a week basis, you're not going to get better. If you want to go to the gym and get better, you want to get stronger. If you want to, play basketball and get better basketball. If you're playing basketball once a week when it's game time, or going to the gym once a week, you're not going to make progress. Or if you make progress, it'll be very slow. Versus if you go many times throughout the week, or 3 to 4 times a week, or even every day of the week, you'll make a lot more progress. Same thing with practicing sight reading. If you're not practicing on a daily or consistent basis, you're not going to get better. So the question is, where do I start? Because I want to have material to sight read, but I don't know where to look. So, if you're doing Byzantine chant, a good thing to do is figure out where do you start to find things difficult. I find things difficult, for example, at the sticharic genre. This is not me personally, but just in general. Then, take a step back and look at hymnologic music. If I'm a singer and I'm finding solo repertoire hard, take a step back and look at some Bach chorales. Bach chorales are not necessarily difficult, or maybe some other Protestant hymns. They have more simple harmonies than a lot of the other solo repertoires, and the lines are a lot easier to sing as well. So maybe if you are a soprano, try sight reading the soprano line, or if you're also a soprano, try reading the other lines of the music as well. So that way you can have a better idea of how to read music that is at an easier level. So reading more music, and of course, knowing the solfege are kind of the two biggest things. The third thing that is also important is the speed at which you are practicing sight reading. You can't expect to sight read things at a playable level from the get go. That's unreasonable. But rather, the idea of sight reading is to build those connections. So I always say, try to practice sight reading at like 50 beats per minute. 50 beats is pretty slow, but it's fast enough that it will allow you to keep moving, but slow enough that allows you to make those connections quicker. So practice slowly. And what I'm going to do is actually show you guys how to approach a sight reading practice session so that you guys can get better at it. So let's look at this. This is going to be a hymn. It's from the Byzantine chant tradition, but the principles still apply. The idea is that we're going to take it at a slow enough level, 50 beats per minute like we said before, but we're going to make sure that what happens with solfege is still accurate. So this is 50 beats per minute, and we're going to give ourselves a starting pitch. So this is soft chromatic second mode. Let's put it there, it's a pretty comfortable pitch. And we're going to start from here. And with that solfege, or parley, we're gonna do it with the metronome. Di, zo, zo, ke, di, ra, di. Di, ke, zo, ke, di, ra, vu, ke, di. So I did it slow enough that I can have a consistent tempo, but also that I can understand what I'm singing. So especially when I have these jumps here that are up 3 or a fourth, dun dun dun, I have that time to calculate it in my head. Do ke di. If I take it any faster, it's a little harder to actually make those connections. Now what you can do then is you have two options. Go through the entire thing using solfege at that tempo. This is not the easiest hymn. It's actually kind of difficult with some modulations and some more rhythmically involved things. But what you can also do is do the same thing again, but using the words. Set, O Lord, a watch before my mouth, with the metronome, of course. And if you do it at that tempo, it gives you enough time to think about the solfege while you're singing the words. So when I'm singing this, da dun, I'm hearing ni zo. Or if you're Western, I do fa mi, but I'll be singing set, O Lord, while thinking about it. And when you do it at a slow enough tempo, you can think about it. Now, there's a couple other tips for sight reading. So the first thing is actually looking ahead of where you're reading. So for example, if I'm here, and I'm going to sing it, set, O Lord, a watch before my mouth, my eyes are actually closer to over here and over here when I'm reading this. The reason why is because I'm actually processing what I'm singing far before I'm singing it. Set, O Lord, a watch before my mouth, and a door of enclosure round about my lips. I'm looking far ahead so I can actually anticipate what I'm going to sing. And this is a very common technique for all musicians. I had a piano professor, and I asked her, when you sight read, how far ahead do you look? And she said, I look about 2 measures ahead of where I'm playing. That's an important thing because you want to be able to anticipate what's coming next. Same thing here. If I'm singing, incline not my heart unto words of evil, to make excuse with excuses and sins. That's very fast, but I'm looking ahead of where I am because the music's coming pretty fast. Um, and of course, this takes time to develop, but if you take it slow enough and you do it consistently enough, little by little, things will start to make sense. So that's kind of the principles for sight reading. Now, a couple other things. Your fundamentals have to be good. So you should know the theory of what you're singing. If you're a Byzantine chanter, you should know your scales well. You should know your notation well. You should know how to interpret rhythms well. Same thing with Western music. You should know your key signatures. You should know how to interpret rhythms and read rhythms right. Otherwise, you'll be limited by the scale you're singing out, and you'll be limited by, of course, the timing and the rhythm. And from what my experience, singers tend to have some of the worst rhythms out there because oftentimes we just are used to hearing things and singing them back and not actually producing them. So the idea is you have to get those fundamentals strong if you want this to work. It's not very hard. You have to learn things, of course, but if you don't have those fundamentals down, things aren't going to work out. The other thing is that make sure that your things that you're reading are in your range. You don't want to find things that are so out of your range of course, your vocal range. If it's too high for you, it's not going to be helpful to sight read it necessarily because it's going to be kind of too hard for you unless you're looking for advanced repertoire to sight read. So now this is kind of the fundamentals for sight reading and getting better at sight reading. The important thing is that if you want to get better at it quickly, you got to do it at least, 3 times, 4 times a week, if not every day, and at least for 20 to 30 minutes. Some people say an hour a day I'd sight read, which is, it's a lot. It's a lot of things to look at, but it makes things move faster. But when you interact with music at a more frequent level, you can improve much quicker. Like I said, you can go to the gym once a week, and maybe you'll get the same amount of progress, in 5 years as someone who goes 5 times a week will get in a year. Same thing with practicing piano. If I practice 1 hour a week, in 5 years I'll be proficient, kind of. If I practice 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, after a year I'll be probably at the same level as the guys who've been playing piano for 5 years because I've been putting in the time. So the same thing is with sight reading. So make sure your fundamentals are good. Take things slow. If you're a singer, use solfege or a Byzantine chanted parley, and make sure your fundamentals are good. And if you follow these principles, you should be at a better position to practice sight reading and get better at sight reading. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate if you liked and subscribed. Also, please feel free to share this with anyone that you think would find this information useful. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one, and have a great day.